The birthday cake sat untouched on the kitchen island as my brother Daniel delivered what he clearly considered a masterpiece of fraternal intervention. At 31, he'd finally been promoted to senior account manager at his regional marketing firm, an achievement he'd mentioned approximately 15 times since arriving at my parents' house an hour earlier. "Look, Alex," he said, gesturing with his beer bottle for emphasis, "it's time someone said this. You're 28 years old. Stop pretending to be an entrepreneur." The family gathering, assembled to celebrate Dad's 60th birthday, turned their attention to the familiar entertainment of dissecting my life choices. Aunts, uncles, cousins, and family friends formed an impromptu audience for Daniel's performance. "I mean, what do you actually do all day?" Daniel continued, warming to his theme. "Sit in your apartment making PowerPoints about imaginary businesses?" The PowerPoints weren't imaginary. They were investor presentations for Cloud Secure Analytics, the cybersecurity platform I'd been developing for 3 years. But to my family, any work that didn't involve a traditional office, fixed schedule, and obvious boss was essentially elaborate unemployment. "Daniel has a point," Aunt Rebecca chimed in from the living room. "At some point you need to accept reality and find stable employment." Stable employment. Like Daniel's job managing social media campaigns for local car dealerships, or like my cousin Mark's position selling insurance to small businesses. "I keep telling him," Mom said, refilling wine glasses with the practiced efficiency of someone who'd hosted this exact conversation dozens of times, "there are excellent opportunities in corporate America for people with his technical background." Technical background. I had dual degrees from MIT in computer science and business administration. My technical background included developing cybersecurity protocols that were currently protecting Fortune 500 companies' data infrastructure. "The problem is Alex thinks he's too good for normal jobs," Dad added, cutting himself another slice of birthday cake. "He's always been a dreamer." A dreamer. Last month, I'd signed a partnership agreement with Amazon Web Services to integrate Cloud Secure into their enterprise security suite. The deal was worth $47 million over 3 years, but the announcement wouldn't be public until tomorrow morning when the stock market opened. "Remember when he was 12 and wanted to be an inventor?" Daniel laughed. "Some people never grow out of the fantasy phase." Family members chuckled appreciatively. This was well-worn territory. Alex the dreamer, Alex the impractical one, Alex who needed to come down to earth. "I've actually been thinking," Uncle Steve said, leaning back in his recliner with the confidence of someone who'd never risked anything more adventurous than a restaurant investment, "maybe it's time for some tough love. No more family financial support until he gets a real job." Financial support. They thought I was living off family money because I didn't have a traditional paycheck. The truth was more complex. I'd been quietly supporting myself through consulting contracts and small investments while building Cloud Secure. My savings account held more money than Daniel would earn in the next 5 years. "Steve's right," Mom agreed. "We're enabling this behavior by letting him avoid responsibility." "I could talk to my boss," Daniel offered magnanimously. "We might have an opening in our IT department. Entry-level, but everyone has to start somewhere." Entry-level IT. My brother wanted to help me find a job troubleshooting email problems and installing software updates. "That's generous, Daniel," Dad said approvingly. "Family helping family. That's how real success works." Real success. Like Daniel's company car. A leased Honda Civic that he treated like a status symbol. Like Mark's insurance sales awards hanging in his cubicle. Like the collective satisfaction of 30 relatives who'd never built anything more complex than an IKEA bookshelf. "What do you say, Alex?" Daniel asked with exaggerated patience. "Ready to join the real world?" I glanced at my phone. 7:47 p.m. West Coast time. Tomorrow morning, Bloomberg would announce that Cloud Secure Analytics was going public in a landmark IPO valued at $800 million. My 73% ownership stake would make me worth more than my entire extended family combined. "You know what, Daniel?" I said, setting down my untouched piece of cake. "Tomorrow's going to be very educational about what constitutes real success." Daniel grinned, completely missing the edge in my voice. "That's the spirit. Ready to stop playing entrepreneur and start building something actual? More ready than you can possibly imagine." The birthday party continued for another hour. each family member taking their turn to offer career guidance with the confidence of people who'd never created anything more innovative than an Excel spreadsheet. I nodded politely while they competed to deliver the most devastating critique of my pretend business phase. "You know what your problem is, Alex?" Cousin Mark said, loosening his tie after his third beer. "You think you're smarter than everyone else. You think traditional careers are beneath you." Traditional careers. Like Mark's insurance sales job, where he cold-called small business owners and earned a commission on policies most of them couldn't afford. "Mark's absolutely right," Daniel agreed. "Alex has always had this superiority complex about normal work. Like the rest of us are somehow failing because we have steady jobs." Steady jobs. Daniel's steady position at the marketing firm paid $52,000 a year and required him to manage Instagram accounts for used car lots. Last quarter, CloudSecure's revenue had exceeded $2 million. "I think it comes from watching too many movies about Silicon Valley," Dad suggested, cutting himself a third piece of birthday cake. "He thinks everyone becomes a millionaire with some app idea." Some app idea. CloudSecure wasn't an app. It was enterprise-grade cybersecurity infrastructure that analyzed network threats in real time using machine learning algorithms I'd developed over 18 months of 12-hour days. "Plus, let's be honest," Aunt Rebecca added, "how many of these tech startups actually succeed? Most of them fail within a year." Most of them. She was probably thinking about local businesses. Coffee shops, consulting services, retail stores. She had no framework for understanding technology companies, venture capital, or the difference between lifestyle businesses and scalable platforms. "That's why established companies are safer," Uncle Steve explained to the room. "Daniel's got job security benefits, a 401k. That's real wealth building." Real wealth building. Daniel's 401k contained approximately $34,000. My personal investment portfolio, built from consulting income while developing CloudSecure, was worth more than $6 million. "I just wish Alex would be realistic about his capabilities," Mom said, refilling glasses with wine that cost less than what I'd spent on lunch yesterday. "Not everyone can be Steve Jobs." Steve Jobs. As if entrepreneurship was limited to once-in-a-generation visionaries instead of the thousands of successful business owners who built valuable companies every year. "Exactly," Daniel said. "Alex, you're a smart guy, but you're not revolutionary. You're just normal. Like the rest of us." Normal. Tomorrow morning, Forbes would run a feature story about CloudSecure's IPO, calling it one of the most significant cybersecurity innovations since firewall technology. The article would describe me as the kind of technical visionary who bridges the gap between complex engineering and practical business applications. "Maybe we should stage an intervention," Cousin Lisa suggested half-jokingly. "Seriously, Alex. When are you going to admit this startup thing isn't working and get a real job?" An intervention. For the family member whose company was about to debut on the New York Stock Exchange with a market valuation approaching $1 billion. "I actually looked into this," Jennifer, Daniel's wife, said, pulling out her phone. "There are statistics about entrepreneurship failure rates. It's really scary how many people waste years chasing businesses that never make money." Waste years. I'd spent 3 years building something that employed 47 people, protected data for hundreds of companies, and generated enough revenue to fund my family's combined lifestyles for the next decade. "That's why corporate careers are the smart choice," Daniel concluded. "Steady advancement, predictable income, clear success metrics. You know exactly where you stand." I knew exactly where I stood. Tomorrow morning when the market opened, I'd be worth approximately $584 million. Daniel's steady advancement over the past 3 years had resulted in a salary increase of $8,000. My phone buzzed with a text from my investment banker. Final IPO pricing confirmed. Opening at $47 per share. "Congratulations, Alex. You're about to become very, very wealthy." I put the phone away and looked around the room at my family. 30 people who'd spent the evening explaining why I needed to abandon my dreams and settle for their version of security. Tomorrow morning, they'd discover exactly how expensive their advice had been. The New York Stock Exchange opened at 6:30 a.m. Pacific Time. I was awake at 5:45, coffee in hand, watching the pre-market trading on my laptop from my downtown Seattle apartment. The same apartment my family considered evidence of my failure to launch properly into adulthood. Cloud Secure Analytics went public at exactly 9:30 a.m. Eastern Time. The stock opened at $47 per share and immediately spiked to $63. By 10 a.m., it had hit $71. My 73% ownership stake was now worth over $600 million. At 10:47 a.m. Pacific Time, Bloomberg Television ran their first segment about the IPO. Cloud Secure Analytics debuted on the New York Stock Exchange this morning in one of the year's most successful technology offerings, the anchor announced. The cybersecurity company, founded by 28-year-old Alex Chen, opened at $47 and is currently trading at $74 per share. The screen displayed CloudSecure's logo alongside my MIT graduation photo and a graph showing the stock's meteoric rise. Chen, who built the company from his Seattle apartment over 3 years, owns 73% of CloudSecure's shares, making him one of the youngest billionaires in technology history. One of the youngest billionaires in technology history. Not bad for someone who'd been advised to seek entry-level IT work less than 24 hours earlier. My phone started ringing at 11:03 a.m. Daniel's number. I let it go to voicemail. It rang again at 11:07. And 11:15. And 11:23. Finally, at 11:30 I answered. Alex. Daniel's voice was strained, uncertain. Did you see? Are you watching the news? Which news? Bloomberg. They're talking about Cloud Secure Analytics. They're saying the founder. They're saying it's you. It is me. Silence. Then, but the company they're talking about is worth billions of dollars. $640 million as of about 10 minutes ago, but yes. But how? When did this happen? Why didn't you tell us? I did tell you. You said I was pretending to be an entrepreneur and needed to get a real job. I could hear commotion in the background, probably Mom grabbing the TV remote to find Bloomberg. Alex, we didn't know, Daniel said finally. We thought your business was we didn't realize it was real. Real enough for the New York Stock Exchange, apparently. But if we'd known about the IPO, about the money, if you'd known I was successful enough to make you look good by association, you mean? More background noise. Dad's voice. Is that really him? On Bloomberg. Dad. The dreamer just became a billionaire. Alex, son. Mom's voice came through the speaker as Daniel put the call on speakerphone. We made a mistake. We should have supported your vision. You should have asked what my vision actually was before deciding it was worthless. Can we talk about this? As a family? Daniel asked. Maybe we could meet for dinner tonight and... I'm booked tonight. Interview with CNBC about cybersecurity innovation. Tomorrow then? Tomorrow I'm flying to New York to ring the closing bell at the NYSE. Silence. When will you be free? Mom asked quietly. When I decide that family relationships are worth more than the money you suddenly care about. I hung up and watched CloudSecure's stock hit $81 per share. My net worth had just crossed $700 million. Not bad for a dreamer. The media attention lasted 6 weeks. CloudSecure's stock stabilized at $93 per share, making my stake worth over $800 million. Harvard Business School invited me to speak at their entrepreneurship conference. President Biden's economic advisory team requested a briefing on cybersecurity policy. The family calls never stopped. Daniel left voicemails explaining that he'd always believed in my potential and had just been playing devil's advocate to help me stay grounded. Mom sent handwritten letters about how proud she'd always been of my independent spirit. Dad started telling neighbors about his brilliant entrepreneur son. I didn't respond to any of them. Instead, I established the Chin Foundation for Technology Education, endowing it with $50 million to provide coding scholarships for low-income students. The press release mentioned my motivation: supporting young innovators who might not have traditional family backing for their entrepreneurial dreams. 3 months after the IPO, I received a wedding invitation from my cousin Lisa. Someone had handwritten a note on the card. Alex, hope you can attend. Would love to celebrate your success with the family. My success. The same success they'd spent years dismissing as fantasy. I declined the invitation and sent an expensive gift with a note. Congratulations on your celebration. Unfortunately, I'm still busy pretending to be an entrepreneur. The foundation's first scholarship recipients were announced the following week. 25 students whose families had discouraged their interest in technology careers. Sometimes the best revenge is proving that dreamers build the future while pragmatists manage the past. I never attended another family birthday party.